There's a huge gap from what they're teaching from the accredited programs that you're only able to take a few computer-aided classes in most of the top design schools. So you're coming out, you might know a little bit, but you're not going to know enough to help you get the job.
Welcome to the On the Wall podcast, where we engage in conversations with artists, designers, enthusiasts, and visionaries who shape the world of interiors. Today's guest is Marcy Sagel, the founder of DesignerBank and the principal of MSA Interiors, where she has spent 25 years leading large-scale commercial and multifamily projects and training designers to execute real-world work. If you enjoy these conversations, please subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review, and share this podcast with a friend. Joining me now is Marcy Sagel, the founder of DesignerBank and the principal of MSA Interiors. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So where are you joining me from today?
We're based in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
We have an office.
Is that where you've?
I'm sorry.
Is that where you've always been?
Our headquarters are in Baltimore, yes, but we're located. We have a lot of people that work remotely full time around the country.
Okay. So yeah, you're born and raised in Baltimore. Is that where you've always been from?
I'm born in Baltimore. I was raised in Annapolis, Maryland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you've always sort of been in that part of the country, sort of.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I grew up not far from the Naval Academy and on the water, and love the water, love being on the water.
Oh, awesome. There's a lot of shipyards over there, aren't there? Isn't that where like a lot of shipping happens?
The Naval Academy is like right in downtown. And so I grew up with midshipmen my whole life at our house. And we always hosted people. If you're in a certain mile radius of the Naval Academy, you can be a host to Naval Academy people that are attending. And so we had a lot of midshipmen in our house growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you are head of this MSA Interiors. Is that right? What's your, so I noticed that it's more focused towards commercial design, but it's still like living quarters. It's large scale residential, like apartment complexes, student living, senior living, all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, we do multifamily, we do market rate, affordable housing, senior housing, student housing. And I like to say that our interior design, while it's considered commercial, we have more of a residential feel to it.
Right.
There's more hospitality, more residential feel to it. So it requires people to kind of delve into finishes and really developing that skill set of taking it in a direction of interest to the developer.
Okay, cool. How did you kind of get into it all? What's your background in interior design?
Sure. So growing up in Annapolis, I had a mother that my parents constantly had interior designers working on our home. And my mother I'm an only daughter, and she would ask my opinion and present everything to me. And I would sit in the meetings and listen and learned a lot and pretty much knew from a very early age, as I was giving my opinion on a lot of different things at 10, 11, 12 years old, I fell in love and was very passionate about interior design from an early age.
Okay, so you were absorbing it even as a little girl. It was just always around.
And my mom had incredible taste and
okay.
Very different than what is traditional in Annapolis. My mother had a lot of collections of things and it just taught me a lot about furniture and fabrics and art and collecting and all of those things that I didn't know until my mother sort of presented them, to me at a young age. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And so how did you go to proper schooling for it?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It took me a little while to kind of get myself, even though I knew I wanted to be an interior designer, I felt like all of the designers that my mother had been working with were quite, much older. And I thought, well, no one's going to hire me at a young age. I have a lot to learn. So I went to school. I studied graphic design. I studied interior design. I studied both. I thought they would both be helpful to each other, and they have been. It's been a good
Mm-hmm.
background for me. So I was fortunate enough to be able to get into the interior design industry. I started out residentially, believe it or not. And
Okay.
through that residential experience, I had gotten quite good at cabinetry and millwork. And so was doing all of the hand elevations and CAD drawings back then. And a client came to me through an architectural group that I was redlining all of their cabinetry drawings for their multifamily. And he called me and he said, I'd like you to redline these and tell me how you would save us money.
On the Wall is brought to you by Milton & King, your trusted partner for luxury crafted wall coverings. Milton & King's trade program is designed to make your creative process seamless, offering exclusive trade-only benefits such as complimentary samples, early access to new collections, and professional pricing structured to enhance your business success. To assist with your projects, you'll have the flexibility to create your own custom swatchbook, tailored specifically to your design needs. With dedicated customer support every step of the way, our trade program is here to elevate your design vision and simplify your journey from inspiration to installation. Ready to join a partner who understands your craft? Visit miltonandking.com to apply for your trade account today. Milton & King, your vision, our craftsmanship.
And so I did. And he was a very large public company that did multifamily all across the country. They were based in California. And he asked me if I would work with him. He was an architect, not the architect on the projects. He just had an architectural background with an architectural degree. He asked me if he could work with me on doing all of the design space for the whole entire multifamily building. And I said, I'd love to, but I have to be honest, I've never done one before. And he said, I'm going to work with you and I'm going to show you how to do it. I think you're going to be the right fit for us. And he showed me pretty much everything I needed to know about how to work in large scale multifamily spaces, how to look at finishes and price points of finishes and get them in that multifamily price point, and learning everything I needed to learn in order to gain the knowledge, which of course, 25 years later, we are very much involved in the multifamily housing.
Wow. So, because I was just going to ask, like, were you prepared to
No.
take on that task that the person was giving you?
No.
So was this person just a lovely guy, or why?
Well, he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I got out of it. I was nervous. I was honest. I told him I had not ever done a project of that size before. And he said, you just saved us, like $1 million on cabinetry by reconfiguring things. All I did was redline the architect's drawings. And they had 26 different layouts at the time for these apartment stacks. And I went through each one of them and I redlined them and showed him why and how I thought he could save money if they didn't have a pantry, and if they didn't have a cabinetry pantry, and if they did some different changes and had less of these tall doors. And I made a note of everything. I sent them back to the cabinet maker, and I got a price back. It was savings of $1 million. He said, if you can do that, you're going to work with me on the rest of the building. And I said, I don't really know how. And, I have no good design. I know what I like. I am really good at taking direction, but I really am going to need a lot of hand holding on this because I'm not confident yet that I can do this. So he walked me through it. We worked side by side and we had a phenomenal building that we did. And I got a lot of other projects, obviously, from that. And just have learned. I'd like to say I learn all the time. I'm learning from everyone, from all different vendors, all different architects, our engineers. I try to take in as much information as I can.
That's quite a big amount of savings.
Yeah.
So how did you go from that to starting MSA?
So I had started MSA, but we were really specializing in residential. So I already had a firm, but it really wasn't doing large scale commercial. And So I learned a lot about it. And what I became really good at was finishes and developing finishes for different vendors. Back then, they didn't really have tile that was the right price point for multifamily units. So I went to coverings and I walked the show with a different vendor that I'm very, very close with still to this day. And we walked the show and she said to me, if you could create a line in a certain price point, what would you pick? And what price point would you pick for multifamily? And so she created a multifamily price point in that, like, I want to say 150 to 250 range for like the units and for the bathrooms. And then for the kitchen backsplashes, I said they kind of needed to be in that sort of $5 to $10 range. And she went and got products and we helped pick the colors. And I did the same thing with flooring. When vinyl planks started to come out, they were very fake looking. And I didn't like the way they looked. And I said, I can't really use these in a unit because they look plasticky. They looked not real to me. And so I had a vendor say to me, well, what would you do differently? And I said, I want them to look more like real wood. If we're going to make them feel like wood, and we want the colors to look more like wood and less like it's been printed. So they brought in all of these different samples. We took photographs of them. They sent them to the manufacturer. I went out to Germany with some of the manufacturers, and we created a line for North America for them for vinyl plank flooring that looked much more real and in the right price point.
So back then, because when you said you did like the original drawings of what were you using at that time?
Great question. Well, originally I worked in hand drawings originally, and then I learned CAD. And then I now use Revit. So our firm had to make the change over to Revit because we work with very large architectural groups and we have to work in whatever program they work in. And when I started to feel that they were all working in Revit, we had to make the change pretty quickly. And Revit is a complicated program. I always like to say there's no one that's going to know everything ever about Revit. But it was designed for architects to replace CAD and be more of a 3D program. And interior designers use it differently than architects. We have a different type of a library than they do. And you, by the way, have to create your own library for it. And architects, they just use it differently. They're looking at the building scale, and we're looking at the interior and the finishes of the interior and how that's going to be elevated. Just a little bit of a different mix. So every single time I tried to train any of our employees through Revit and their trainers, it wasn't giving us what we needed for the actual program and for what we needed to do in that program. So we started to create a library. I hired someone to work on our library just specifically for that. We invested in changing everybody over. And then we basically figured out that we pretty much had to learn on our own some of the skill sets for Revit until I had a couple of people that I hired that actually had worked at architectural firms and had a better skill set for using Revit for interior design. And I think over 25 years of training people, we really understood that there was sort of a gap missing. And we figured that that gap was really in the training process. And what could we do to help people that might want to work in Revit or learn how to render in Enscape and really become quite good at it, and make their presentations look like they're almost photographs, because we all used to farm renderings out overseas, and my whole office, everyone does their own rendering. So we all do our own renderings. It's part of the design process. It benefits residential designers as well as commercial designers. But we ended up coming up with this idea to do these learning modules for anyone that might want to learn how to use Revit for interior design, learn how to use Enscape for interior design. And instead of having to hire someone, you can pay this minimal fee and it walks you through with a video, with a workbook, And you can stop and start it at your own convenience, and it just makes it much more simple. And I found that, in every residential designer that I knew that wanted to learn how to evolve and work, in a 3D element and then be able to do the renderings, this was really, really helpful, our training program.
Yeah, so that leads me to what you created called DesignerBank.
Right.
And so that is essentially a tutorial for Revit, for Enscape, among other things. And so, like you said, I got to have a little bit of a preview and play around with it. It's really cool because, yeah, it's like you said, there was some sort of gap between the way that architects were using it and interior designers were using it. And so do you feel like your approach, so you in this, would you call it, I don't know if you call it a platform or just an educational tool? I don't know how exactly you would refer to it, but would you say that the way that you're approaching DesignerBank is a way to sort of bridge that gap between architectural language and interior design language so that they can kind of speak to each other and work together?
It is. And what we realized is not only had we kind of stumbled onto something that actually was really, really needed, because it's very, very hard for residential people to jump into the commercial world unless they have some really basic experience. And that basic experience is definitely Revit now. And so I thought, well, maybe we can, bridge the gap here and come up with something that everyone could use and it would benefit anyone, whether it's residential or commercial, and teaching people different skill sets into, not only space planning, but also, just, how to light that space plan, how to render it so that it's got all of these sort of accessories and, lighting and, sort of shading and fabrics that you might need in your rendering. And I call it a learning management system because I wasn't sure what to call it at first, but it's really online learning modules that anyone can download. And, I just launched, so it's very new. And what we realized is not only is it good for interior designers that are already working or doing it on the side, but that universities really needed it. There's a huge gap from what they're teaching from the accredited programs, because they have to fit so much into a 4-year program that you're only able to take a few computer-aided classes in most of the top design schools. So you're coming out, you might know a little bit, but you're not going to know enough to help you get the job. So we also could then bridge the gap from anyone going to design school to learn these modules. They could come out and actually get a job, because you have to be able to work in these programs in order to get a real job that can effectively pay you a salary. And then after speaking to a lot of our recruiters, we use a lot of recruiters nationwide, and when they've produced candidates to me that don't use Revit, I can't hire them because it would take now too long to train them to get up to speed to where we are. So I don't really hire anyone anymore that doesn't do Revit. But what we have figured out is that if they had any of their candidates that didn't know Revit and they could take the modules, they could increase their salary between $15,000 and $30,000 just by learning one program, which is a lot. So, so there's a lot of things here that we kind of figured out as we were moving along the process. I went to a program at Princeton called Birthing of Giants, and at that program is how I came up with the idea of the learning modules. They work with you for a week, and you kind of come up with ideas within your business of other different types of products that you might have that you didn't know that you had. And that's what I came up with. I hadn't quite named it. I just said, I want to do these learning modules. And one of the guys there, who was a serial entrepreneur, he's just so accomplished. He said to me, I'm in this industry. I know learning modules. I'm going to mentor you and help you get this to market. And he did. He was instrumental in helping me really understand learning modules and how to look for the right software and programs that might accompany it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So your primary target for this would be interior designers who want to make that transition into more commercial work, and then also new students who are, just out of school who might want to up their game and make themselves more attractive to the job market in interior design and in commercial design. Have you yet had any, because I'm actually surprised with what you're saying about how a lot of students are coming into the workforce and they're not prepared. Have you teamed up with any schools, any
So
educational
I'm
programs
I'm
to?
working with a number of universities right now. I actually have a very large university with one of the top interior design programs that's going to be taking this on. And so
Okay.
we're just in the process of negotiating that contract right now. And I met with them. We've met with a couple of different universities right now, so we have a couple of them going. But they they loved it. They thought it was a good gap for them. They could use it for kind of executive education and then roll it into their accredited program. That takes a little time to do. It has to go through an approval board. So yes, so they saw the need just like I saw the need.
Yeah, because I mean, how great would that be if students could just make it a part of their curriculum and then they come out and they are fully ready to just,
Mhm.
hit the ground running, really.
Yeah. And I think, we've hired a number of different people out of school interns over the years. And, I know which schools prepare their students the best, just because we've had people from there and they've always been able to hit the ground running. And
Hmm.
then other schools that they come out knowing a lot of theory and a lot of design, but they don't necessarily know how to work in the programs that we all work in. And so, there's that gap, and you just want to make sure that people can fill the void wherever they went to school, and make sure, and maybe they didn't even go to school. And this is the other thing. If someone's just really doing interior design at home and they really want to, do decorating, as I call it, what I say is that you can learn these programs and work in them without any kind of schooling and still get incredible renderings and incredible space planning with just some really good basic things that we're teaching you. So I think it's good for just about everyone, to be honest.
Well, yeah, because I think there is a big cohort of people that are interior designers that are pretty much self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
They basically,
Wow.
like you said, either they grew up around it or just grew up and loved it and started reading books and just educating themselves and have an eye for it, but maybe don't have the technical side. And so that's something that they could really, improve their toolbox
Yeah.
essentially.
And some of the best interior designers that are residential that I know in this country, some of them never went to school, and they're some of the most talented I've ever seen. They do amazing work. And so, it just kind of just gives you an opportunity to, just learn some skill sets as you're moving through the process of learning more about design.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'll definitely put Designer Bank in the show notes of this episode. So if anybody is interested, they can click on it and have a look and see if it's something that they may be interested in. Because yeah, it's
Yeah,
if you can use that to upgrade your toolbox
sure.
and
I say go
you know
for it. More power to you. But we just launched 13 in our initial launch, and we're hoping to have 30 by the end of the year. We'll have 30 because I have to
so
write
when you
them
say
and produce them, so we film them. So with
okay,
actual people that work here.
so when you say 30, are you talking about like like other programs, or what are the
30
other
actual modules. Yeah.
30 modules?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So is that
so
basically more of a deep dive into these programs you're already working with? Okay.
So we did an initial Revit level 1, beginner, level 2, just a little intermediate, and then to the next level. But we will do another one on how to build families in Revit, and just how to do specialty things. And then we're going to do some other ones on how to work in Bluebeam, and just different things that we think people really need to know how to do. And then people can pick and choose what is effective for them, whether it's commercial or residential. There'll be so much to pick from that, it kind of makes it of a personalized course for yourself.
Congratulations on the launch of Designer
Thank
Bank. That's
you.
really great.
Appreciate
I
it.
hope people take advantage of that. I'd love to just dive into a little bit of just the wealth of your knowledge when it comes to the type of work that you've been doing. and just, kind of just pick your brain a little bit about, like, for example, I was looking at, let me just see if I can pull it up real quick, just so people can kind of get an idea of the type of stuff from your portfolio, if that's all right. Let me just see if I can share
Sure.
my screen here.
Introducing Benchmade Modern. Tailored sofas crafted just for you, delivered in as little as 4 weeks. Create a custom piece that perfectly reflects your style. Choose from our collection of designs from timeless to modern. Customize the size, then personalize with your ideal fabric, cushion, and leg style. Discover your dream sofa today.
So this is one of your projects called 1501.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell me about this project
Sure.
here?
This is a project in Washington, D.C. It has a lot of different things. It has townhouse units on one side and apartments on the other. The townhouses were work live. They had a lottery for them where people could have a studio. So they made this more of an artistic space in the area where the live work units were. This building, it's unique. It's got, they built a park on the outside with a very big, large bicycle path. And because of the bicycle path, they wanted to incorporate bicycles as one of the art pieces. I think if you scroll back up, I can show you. There's a next one right there on the right. Yeah. Those are bicycle parts that that path takes you down to the bike path. And so we made this unique sort of art installation of all bicycle parts. And just getting really creative with what we do. We try to look at things, we look at the architecture, and we try to be unique with everything. We did this little hidden door from the little library into a game room. And, just trying to pull different unique features out while we're designing.
That's so cool. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of give the viewer. So yeah, what we're looking at is this project, but and just in case they're just listening on the audio, and so just to give the viewer or the listener just kind of like an idea of the types of places that we're talking about. When you're creating a place like this, when you're designing it, what are some of the things that you're sort of taking into account in terms of kind of making things that are kind of just, I guess, visually attractive to where it's like a great thing to Instagram or a great thing to put on the company's website type of thing, versus stuff that's actually durable, long-term, lasting, it's that the utility is there, you know what I mean? Not just
Sure.
the wow factor.
In our industry, in multifamily, durability is probably the number one feature. So everything that we work on, we try to put incredibly durable fabrics, things that can hold up and have a longer shelf life. So we seek that out. And the way that we start is we do some really very thorough inspirations so that we work with the developer and the team and even the management team, whoever's going to be the leasing company. We work with them to get a list of what they need, and we kind of incorporate that into the space planning. So our initial presentation, our inspirations, lots and lots of them with, we use a lot of branding words, marketing words, things that people can start to feel the development happening. And we give them a color palette also in that initial inspiration. And then we do space plans, lots and lots and lots of space plans where you can start to feel the flow. And we don't do them in blocks, and we really do draw them out. So that's one of the beautiful things about using Revit, is that we can very easily do space plans for large scale and mix them up. So we can put a leasing area up front, or we can put a large 2-story, fireplace with a big, staircase coming down from the second level or mezzanine. And we can add all of these things and very quickly give you 5 to 10 space plans for the entire building. And that way the developer and the team have something to choose from, and they feel like they're creating it with you. So that's typically how we work.
And so I would guess that you're recommending for the developers and the builders to say, you probably should bring us in from day one, right?
We're brought in super early on, so that when we're brought in very early on, we can start to, we have a list of what we're responsible for, and then the architect has a list of what they're responsible for, but we have what we call meetings to discuss those ideas so that we can understand what the architecture is going to look like early on, the direction. So we might be looking and comparing all of the comparative properties. So we might look at 5 of the, apartment buildings that might be closest to this apartment building that we're going to build. And we'll look at what are their amenities, what do they have in their building, what does it look like? What does the design look like? We don't want to look like our competitor. We want to be different. And what is their price point for rent? And what's going to set us apart and make us different? So we do an evaluation of all of that ourselves so that we can come up with an idea with looking at the architecture of the new building. What direction do you think we should go in based on all of these characteristics? And that helps us to make a decision for a path, so that we're not doing what we necessarily want. We're doing what we think works best for that particular audience, for that market.
Right. So you are trying to sort of fill in gaps in certain spots where, let's say the place next door may have certain amenity, but they may not have another one. And you're trying to basically say, well, rather than just compete with that, we're going to offer something different.
Right. So, we might offer a pool, or there might be a couple gyms in the neighborhood. So maybe our gym doesn't have to be quite as big, and we can utilize that space for something else. And we come up with all kinds of interesting and creative ideas. That's kind of the fun of it. We'll sit around and brainstorm and come up with some new amenity ideas. And COVID changed a lot of things with multifamily buildings because people needed to come out of their apartments. They didn't like being cooped up. None of us liked being cooped up in our houses. So, we needed to make co-working and lots of individual, like, work from home areas, Zoom rooms, all of these different things. So we were effectively taking other areas of the buildings and making them more useful during COVID, so that people could come out and just work in a space that wasn't their home.
Wow. So it's kind of crazy to think about that whatever you want to call it, pandemic phenomenon really did change so much. I mean, like, you don't even think about the fact that, now it's even affecting the way that, multifamily or apartment housing or anything like that is being constructed, because now we're just in a different world. It's the post-COVID world where people are working from home and they need more work from home options and amenities.
Yeah. And my whole office was already on Zoom prior to COVID, because we do a ton of meetings by Zoom, where we used to have to do them in person all of the time. I used to have to get on the road or on a plane to go to a meeting. We do them all by Zoom, pretty much bi-weekly. We have bi-weekly meetings on almost every project. And so it was very easy. We were already remoted. Everybody was able to work remotely from our office. So we were pretty ready for it. But what we hadn't really anticipated was the amount of changes that needed to take place in the design process. So that was a little bit different because of COVID, as you said.
Yeah. I have one question, but it's sort of, I guess, in 2 parts. So, and it's sort of related. Do you ever have a situation, like, I guess you would hope that it wouldn't work out this way, because you'd hope developers and architects have their ducks in a row. But do you ever have it where something is sort of built and then they come to you after the fact and they go, okay, make it look pretty?
Oh yeah.
And you're just like, you should have brought us in, at the beginning of this thing.
We do have that, but we also handle a lot of large scale renovations. So a lot of buildings, like, you walk into a lot of different apartment buildings and they look dated, but they're in great locations, and they want to update it and give it sort of like a lift and bring it more current. So we're brought in a lot for renovations and to kind of work with the building structure, but maybe like, for instance, no one had package rooms the way we have package rooms now. I mean, Amazon's
Oh,
crazy.
right.
So that's
Amazon lockers and
big change, yeah. So now we have these very large things, TVs, mattresses, things coming in the mail that are just super large scale, and bicycles and things like that. So we were creating package rooms out of like dead amenity spaces. So yes, we're brought in all the time to kind of make things current and revise it and give it a fresh look.
yeah, that was sort of the other half of my question was I was
Yeah.
going to say, I'm guessing you're brought in sort of after the fact to update and make it so that it is post-COVID,
Oh yeah.
livable. Okay.
Absolutely. And then, just now we do a lot of things where we call them they have markets in them. So they might have
Yeah.
vending machines that are like, from CVS or a Walmart or that kind of thing, or just a mini market, depending on if it's in a suburban location or a location that's sort of like what we call suburban location, not urban
Mm-hmm.
location. And they would create these mini marts so that people don't have to go to the store if they don't need to. They can go downstairs and get like some basic items. So we do a lot of those as well in suburban properties.
You had mentioned at the start of our conversation how when you were getting started, you were redlining their plans to save them money and that kind of thing. Is there any sort of, I guess, material that you would say that you find really is still durable and a good material to use, but does end up saving a lot of money when it comes to when you're at the start of these builds that you're saying, oh, I recommend these materials because they're going to really make it so that you can come within budget?
Absolutely. So we do work for hospitals and large scale things of that nature. And there's two products that I just think are pretty phenomenal. One are porcelain slabs. Like 10-foot porcelain slabs that are very, very reasonable, but it looks like a marble front. So we use those a lot on the front of an elevator or in a lobby wall in a hospital. They're very easy to clean and they're inexpensive and they look really high end. So that's definitely a product that I absolutely love. And another product that I love is called Belbian. It is a vinyl wood film wrap that you can wrap. Like I've done work in hospitals where they've had very dated wood, and we've come in and we've used Belbian, and all the wood gets wrapped in that vinyl, and it looks incredible, like so high end and such a reasonable price. So we love both of those products in the commercial world that we feel really gives really good value and really high end look.
Do you find yourself using vinyl wallpapers and things like that too?
We use wallpaper on every single job. Vinyl wallpaper, literally on every job. And one of my favorite things to use is we'll do wallpapers down corridor. We'd use it everywhere because it's very economical. And I think anyone's foolish if they don't use, in the commercial world, vinyl wallpaper. And so what we do is we use a lot of things that are out on the current market. I'd say wallpaper is probably your biggest bang for the buck of anything you're going to use on anything commercial.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I noticed that you also do stuff for like senior living.
Mm-hmm. We do.
So what are sort of some of the design principles that you have in terms of how you approach those types of facilities where, you're making decisions that obviously try to maintain a person's dignity and independence and all that kind of stuff, but you're still, you still have a design mind. You're still wanting to look nice and that kind of thing. Are there any sort of like design principles you have when you're kind of going into like a senior or assisted living type facility?
So we've done a lot of it, and independent living is very residential feel. It's got a lot of different areas, gaming areas, lounge areas, fireplace areas, dining, multiple dining, cafes, places for people to have happy hour, worship, and an activities room. So there's just a million different things going on in independent living, and places for people to sit outside amongst the gardens and sit in the front of the building. And then when you move into assisted, things change. The needs are different. People have more of a difficult time getting into their front door. So we typically look at the locking mechanism on the entryway for the doors. We pull in assisted living. Typically, it has a mini kitchen, doesn't have all of the appliances that you have in the independent living. So it's kind of a pared down unit, so to speak. It still can have a living room or a bedroom separately, and it will just have like a refrigerator and possibly a microwave or not, depending on what branch that we're working with. And then when you get into the memory care, it's a whole other. Oh, and I forgot to mention the bathrooms, of course, all have accommodations that you can be transitioning into a wheelchair. We have all code, everything is to code, but we look at those things and we really try to make things that are very effective for people to live and take care of themselves as long as they possibly can. And then, of course, when you move to the memory care, which I have a lot of experience with, not only personally, but also from a design standpoint, things change. You're in a room with just a bathroom typically, but you're sharing shower, bath areas, and you're typically being helped by someone in the memory care unit that will assist you in bathing and getting ready. They typically say when you are moving into a memory care, it's because you typically can't take care of yourself any longer. You need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of help, and then until you need full help. So we change the way we design in each of those different areas, from independent to assisted to memory care.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How many people are sort of within your operation there at MSA? How many people are part of your team?
So we have a pretty big team, I guess. It varies. I would say we have 15 people here, and then we have up to 30 remotely. We have other people in different locations. And so we typically work with mostly interior designers, but we have purchasing people, business development people. We have interior architects that work on all of our production work. And a lot of the designers, especially the senior designers, really like to do their own millwork drawings and elevations. So we typically do that. And then our production people get into all of the finite details of all of the sheets and reviewing everything.
The reason I ask that is because about to wrap up here, and typically I always ask one question of every guest that comes on to the podcast, and that is, what do you do to stay creative? And it got me thinking, because as the founder and you're sort of at the top of this, and you're running the business, and you have all these people on your team, and a lot of what you're doing is I guess maybe you're using a bit of math brain, for lack of a better term, as opposed to sort of artsy kind of creative brain.
Yeah.
And so in asking that question, I am sort of curious, as someone who's in your position, who's maybe on the day-to-day dealing with different types of management projects, things like that. What is it that you do? Obviously you got into the business, you got into doing this because you love creativity, you love being creative, you love designing. What is it that you do now still to stay creative?
Great question. I absolutely love furniture and art auctions. I absolutely cannot get enough of them. So I do a lot of them online, and I sometimes go in person. I love going to the furniture shows like High Point and other furniture shows. There's great ones overseas, like phenomenal ones, because it inspires me and it gives me really good ideas when I see things that I haven't seen in a while or haven't seen in a long time that might inspire something for a project that I'm working on. That's how I kind of fuel my creativity, is to go to those different shows. I just love it. And I like to walk by myself. Like, I don't need an entourage, and I don't need to go in and have meetings. Like, that's, everyone else in my office can do that. I want to walk around and get inspired. I want to see things. I feel like if I set appointments, that I can't really get to see as much as I want to see. And I prefer to go in and just kind of walk everything and just take it all in and take photos of everything. That's an inspiration for me.
Okay. So you really just like to immerse yourself in it and just sort of feel it, for lack of a better term. Well, that's cool. Were you just at the recent High Point market?
I did not go to the recent High Point. I was unable to do this one. I'll go in the fall for the October one. But
okay.
Yeah, the timing didn't work out for me. I had a conflict of something else I needed to be at. But I love those shows. I go to the antiques market first, and then I have sort of a pattern of what I do. I go to the new building of all the new vendors, and then I go to all of our. I do go to see all of our vendors, but I don't make an appointment. I think it kind of pulls me down when I need to do that. And they come to see us for the most part. So I know eventually they'll be here, and I just look at new things that they're putting out on the floor. And that's sort of the fun part for me. Yeah.
And so as we close out here, just sort of wrapping back around to DesignerBank, I'm guessing that, you know, the programs that you're doing modules for, would you say that you pretty much use those for every project that you're involved in, everything you do?
Yeah. We are using Revit and Enscape on every single project we're working on, 100%. Yeah.
And would you say that that's pretty much the norm for people that are, for firms and things that are doing exactly sort of what you're doing?
For all the larger architecture firms that we work with across the country, that's what they work in. And in Revit, there's a different year for every Revit. Some firms aren't upgrading as much as others. So we have Revit from 2018 to 2026. So not everyone has that, but we have to work in whatever they work in. You know, 2018 falls off, and then 2019 falls off as we gain more years. We like to say the larger firms are all working in 2026, but some of the mid-sized firms, they could be working in a 2019 version.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for giving me some of your time today. It was really fascinating to learn all about, you know, the types of projects you're doing, and then this DesignerBank seems really cool. So I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.